America's largest pharmacy is keeping its headquarters in the U.S. The store's parent company, called simply Walgreens, considered a move overseas where it could pay a much lower corporate tax rate.
Investors didn't like the choice. Walgreens stock dropped more than 14% in the past 2 days. President Obama says lawmakers are working to keep American companies from shortchanging taxpayers.
These accounts are saying, you know what, we found a great loophole. If you just flip your citizenship to another country, even though it's just a paper transaction, we think we can get you out of paying a whole bunch of taxes. Well, it's not fair.
It's not fair. It's not fair. Now, I want to get into this with Stephen Moore. If we wind up getting a hold of him, we're trying to get a hold of him right now, chief economist for the Heritage Foundation. And this is something called inversion or inverting. And what is happening now, and he wrote a great column, Senator Dick Durbin, political thug. And joining us now is Stephen Moore. Hello, Stephen. How are you, sir?
Hi, Steve. Great to be with you.
Always great to talk to you. This is so horrific. You know, and you know, we just had Roger Stone on about Nixon, and you talk about Dick Durbin and what they've done in Illinois to Walgreens to keep them from moving their headquarters to Switzerland, and you say the bullying of them would make you know, Richard Nixon blush. Talk about inversion. The president brought this up in a speech a couple of weeks ago, and again, it's not fair. So it's fair for him to gift his kids the maximum amount under the law. It's fair for him to pay an effective tax rate in the low 20s, taking loopholes and deductions under the law. But when corporations act and take advantage of loopholes or deductions or whatever under the law, that's not fair. Do I have it right?
Well, let's start with Dick Durbin, because this is real gangster politics that went on. I mean, it's almost like, you know, the mafioso from The Godfather says, you know, nice store you have here. It'd be a shame if somebody burned it down. That's essentially what Dick Durbin said to Walgreens. You know, he threatened them to take away their Medicare or Medicaid contracts, and you know that's a drugstore, so it would have a hard time surviving without that. He talked about, you know, getting consumers not to shop at the store any longer, and he called them all sorts of names, unpatriotic and Benedict Arnolds and so on. And here's the thing. I mean, Steve, how many times have you and I over the last 4 or 5 years talked about this issue, that our corporate tax is so high it's chasing jobs out of this country? I hate it when I see American companies move out of the United States. My God, Steve, you and I want to bring companies to the United States, not leave the United States. But when you've got a tax system that has the highest tax rates in the world, where companies can save as much as 2/3, if not 100%, on their taxes by moving somewhere else, guess what? They're going to do that. And the people who are unpatriotic here, Steve, I mean, I feel very strongly about this. The people who are unpatriotic is the people like Barack Obama and Dick Durbin and others who refuse to fix the tax system. And we're going to have more and more of these companies leave the United States and take jobs with them until we fix this problem.
How exactly did he go about bullying and using the tactics that you say? I mean, what could he have done? What could the government have done? And if they could do it to Walgreens, who else could they do it to?
Well, exactly right. First of all, what he did was he sent a letter to the CEO of Walgreens saying, you know, you better not do this because, you know, you depend on federal contracts, and don't forget you get a lot of your money from Medicare and Medicaid, and you know, we're going to boycott we're going to help consumers boycott your company if you do this and so on. I mean, Steve, those are pretty heavy-handed tactics against an American company. And, you know, you ask who will they do this to, they'll do it to anybody. They will do it to any company whose agenda that they don't like. And, you know, I mean, Walgreens ultimately, and I wasn't too surprised, I mean, they also ultimately backed down. And they said, you know, we're going to stay because, and they said in the letter when they announced that they were staying that it was because, you know, they didn't say it quite in these words, but because of what they call the political risk of moving. And we know what that means, right? We can read between the lines when they say there was a political risk here.
So what lies ahead? I mean, is it within, you know, there was also at a White House press briefing about a week ago, and I did a Gimme 5 commentary segment on this, where Josh Earnest was asked, I think by Major Garrett, who was kind of taken aback and said, are you saying that the president is going to sign an executive order affecting tax policy in this country, where he's going to pass some kind of law or order on inversion? Basically, Major Garrett was giving him a history lesson, saying, what the procedure has always been in this country as far as the tax code goes, and adjusting it and changing it and who does it. And he was really shocked. And Ernest was non-committal, but he didn't rule it out by any means. So do you see the president using that pen on this issue as well? Yes, absolutely. I mean, they've been more than threatening. I mean, they've been saying that they're going to do this, that the president is going to rewrite the tax laws unilaterally, and not just unilaterally without the approval of Congress. I mean, I thought from my civics classes that the Congress wrote the laws, not the president. But not only that, he would retroactively put in place these changes so that you could retroactively go after companies that have already made this decision to leave. I mean, that's spooky stuff, when you've got a president who's going to resort to those kind of tactics. But we shouldn't be surprised. This is a president who makes up the rules as he goes along. What would that mean? I forget the constitutionality of it. I mean, I don't see how it's constitutional, but I don't see how he's going to be stopped, short of the ultimate stopping, which is not going to happen, and that would be impeachment. But talk to me about what that would mean if he signs it and it's retroactive and he goes after companies who have done it. What would that mean? Well, first of all, you and I have talked about this many times, too, that some of the fault lies with Republicans, that they allow this bullying to go on and they don't stand up to the president. And I'm getting kind of sick of it, actually. I mean, look, the Congress has to protect its rights, and it has to basically say the president is out of line. The president doesn't have the authority to rewrite the tax laws himself. That, the tax laws start in the House. That goes back to the basic Constitution, and then they go through the Senate, and the president signs it. The president can't just make up the laws, and not retroactively. I mean, have you ever heard of anything like that? We're going to change the law. That's like you're going 40 miles down the highway, and it's marked 40 miles an hour, and then they retroactively change the sign and say no, it's only 30 miles an hour, and they give you a ticket. I mean, that's essentially what they're doing here. Yeah, no, that is very, very frightening. But again, it comes from a man who not only believes he can and has rewritten the laws, selectively enforced the laws, but who just, I know he has no use for our history. I know he apologizes for that. I know that he doesn't have any use really for our military power in many respects. He thinks that we're more of an impediment and a problem around the world than for the good of the world. I've felt all along, and now I'm more reinforced than ever, that part of his change and fundamental change, and he's been doing it slowly, is the economy. He has no use for our economic system. It started, if you could argue with Joe the plumber, and it's gotten only worse from there. Well, the president doesn't have Congress now, and he hasn't had the House for a long time, and so he is basically unilaterally making decisions through these executive orders. And, for the first time, as I watch, my specialty is the economy, but I'm paying attention to what's going on abroad in Syria, in Israel, in Iraq, and all these places. And I'm sort of frightened, actually, because this is a president who is not just ideologically, out of line with where you and I are, but you have to question the very competence of this man, whether, he can pull any of this off, or, what is the mission in Iraq right now? I mean, can anybody tell me what we're trying to achieve there? I have no idea. Yeah, well, it changes every day, and we alluded to that with Paul Brenner yesterday and others who said they were a little confused. Last week, it was just going to be to protect our assets, our people, and our embassies, and humanitarian. And then he tells the New York Times there can't be a caliphate. And then yesterday he says he goes back to the original. And then today we hear there might be boots on the ground to help evacuation. So who the heck knows? It depends on the day of the week. Yeah, and then, the one lesson, again, I'm not a military or foreign policy expert, but the one lesson I've learned from Reagan and others is, if you're going to go in, you got to go all in, and you don't do this. I mean, this is how we got sucked into Vietnam. First, we sent some advisors, and then more advisors, and then some military people, and then pretty soon, we're in a full-scale war where we don't know what the objective is. I believe they call that mission creep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, you know, the last thing I'd say about this, I have a solution to this tax problem, though, you know, that would solve this problem of these companies leaving the United States.
Go ahead. We got a minute.
Okay. Eliminate the corporate income tax. I mean, you want to see
right. I
jobs
knew you were
come
going to
this
say
country?
that. Yeah.
I mean, you want to see this country suck up jobs from the rest of the world? How about, Steve, if we go from being the country with the highest corporate income tax to the lowest corporate income tax? I mean,
But Stephen, let me end it. Stephen, let me end it by saying this: if we took the jobs and sucked up the jobs from around the world, that wouldn't be fair. So it ain't gonna happen.
Well, I don't
Steve, you gotta go, Stephen.
How about America on a fair advantage?
Stephen, great talking to you, my friend. Thank you very much, Chief Economist for the Heritage Foundation, Stephen Moore. See you, Stephen. And we're coming back next with Give Me 5.